Hi, welcome to this channel on magnetic energy, technology, principles, applications. This video is about replicating matter, and this is highly unconventional information. This is an etheric magnetic model of the universe that's based on technology and lots of brilliant minds, but it's still highly unconventional, especially in today's day and age. And this particular unit is on the website. This is the Pyramid Molecular Vibratory Exchanger unit, or as we just call it, the Pyramid unit. And I'm going to be talking about this because at this level of technology, this is essential in our suite of technology to replicate matter. Now, in the future, of course, if we get into the crystal age and all of that takes over. All of this becomes obsolete. And at the same time, please keep in mind, if we go through this transition and the pole shift and the enlightenment and all this, people will start to tune into this technology and they will perform all the feats that the technology does, but in particular, they will perform what this does. People will be interconnected, if you will, not in a cyborg kind of way, but in a very natural way. They will be interconnected with the technology and they will assist it in replicating matter. Now, to clear that up, in this model, we wouldn't say we're replicating matter. We would say we're reformulating energetic structures, because in this model, there really is no such thing as matter in a sense of something solid. And everything is energetic structures that are in a continuous state of change. And I think that's really important to understand, because if that were not true, then this particular type of technology would not work. A quote on this is, all matter or energetic structures are made of various combinations of magnetic molecular structures that maintain a unified field of cohesion through a synchronistic vibration. And so we have a whole bunch of quotes and teachings around this particular topic. And so as you can see, that we are kind of getting into this whole area of what really is the nature of matter. Is it how we've been taught in school, or is it something completely different that we can actually work with and change with neutral pulsing magnetic fields? And so now I have to get a shout out to Caleb Pierre, Saint Caleb Pierre. He has been creating renderings of different units on the website, and at some point, as his schedule allows it, he'll do them all. But his renderings are so incredible, and please take a minute, if you will, to go to the websites and see some of the units that he has done new renderings on. And if possible, will you please download them and save them? And if it's convenient for you, only if it's convenient, please print them out so we have multiple hard copies around of this and not just digital information, because that could be important down the road. And so let me get into, thank you, Caleb, by the way, you're the man. So these are walls of wires around these pyramid units, and these walls of wires have relatively neutral magnetic energy being circuited to them from either the ROMAG or the celestial particle transmuter. And then as well, there are copper-coated steel wires that are all around the frame of the pyramid, the large one and the small one, and it's a circuit that allows for the vibration that's coming through, the neutral pulsing vibration, to supercharge this whole area. And then we have a huge rotating magnet above and a huge rotating magnet below. And the magnet below is twice the charge, basically, if you want to say it. It's twice as strong as the one above, and it creates this whole downward kind of focus of energy. So now, for those labs around the world that are using this technology, I have to go over some of the things that could be hurting your success with this whole idea of replicating matter. And so please follow this, and I have to get into some detail to make this make any sense. So you can take notes or watch it again, whatever you want. But okay, so we have two different circuits that are coming in from either the transmuter or the ROMAG, and these are separate. So this particular coil of wires, if you want to call it that, it's like a wall of wires. It is separate from this, and they are also separate from the winding, the wire that's circulating throughout the pyramid. Now, all three of those can go to a ground, and that's and share the same ground. So it would be, and this is a true ground, so this is like a copper pipe that's going at least 5 feet into the earth. And so they can all share the same ground. That's fine, because they're not connected to each other inside the unit. Now, you cannot, and I can't stress this enough, you cannot do this replicating technology inside of a normal building, like with a cement foundation or steel reinforced concrete and electrical fields above or below. This until architecture changes and we have more like magnetically suitable buildings, this must be done like outside, basically like in the dirt. Now, if you want to hide it from satellites or whatever you're doing, you can have a tarp over it or something, but no structures over it that can impede or influence the resonance, and no electrical motor. So if you're going to spin the upper magnet, do not use an electrical motor. If you have to use an electrical motor to do it, make sure the motor is away from the unit and done with a pulley, so it's not above the unit at all, and it could be several feet away from the unit with a pulley, and that's suitable. Like if it could just be a variable DC motor, and that's fine, and keep it contained in a Faraday cage. And then there's one other spot you'll have to do that as well, so that the electrical fields are not influencing this process, because they will contaminate the molecular magnetic structures of this process and influence the results. So make sure that you're not doing that. Now, when we get into the modifications for replication, let me talk about that. So one of the things that we have to do is, inside of the base of the small pyramid is a 3/8 inch thick plate of Talco B. Okay, that's the metal on our website. This is a metal that can receive like signatures of elements without taking on their charge. So it's very critical to this process. So that's like a 3/8 inch thick of plate of Talco B with a groove around the edge that you circuit a copper coated or steel wire through that groove. Okay, and then from that it will, so that plate is not going to touch any of the wiring, any of the other wiring. This is like an isolated circuit, the Talco B plate and the copper coated steel around it, the wire around it, and this particular isolated circuit is not going to go to ground. Okay, so that wire, the copper coated steel wire, will feed from that Talco B plate, and the object being replicated can sit directly on that plate. That's the only thing that the object can be allowed to touch, okay, is the Talco B metal, nothing else. You don't want like probes on it and sensors on it or anything else, because you'll influence the resonant vibration of the object, and we don't want to do that. We want to keep it as pure as possible. And the Talco B won't influence it. It will just pick up the resonant signatures of it. So now the copper coated steel wire goes to what they call a pulse phase matching commutator, and I'll explain what that is. So what's going to happen is this pulse phase matching commutator is going to allow us to synchronize the pulsing of the Talco B plate, so that when it feeds into the next unit, it will be at the appropriate pulse rate relative to what's happening in this unit. So the pulse phase matching commutator is, you could use a 32 bar commutator, that's fine. And what you're going to have is no carbon electrodes or anything like that in it. So there won't be any, and remember, there's no electrical circuitry involved in this. So all the typical things that you would do to carry a current forward, none of those, no electrical gating of any kind can be used with this. So the copper coated steel wire will feed to a contact that is a steel contact that will go to basically the commutator contacts. It'll be the same width as them, and it will touch them as the thing spins, and then the release of that, the exit of that, will be a copper-coated steel wire that feeds into the next pyramid unit with basically another Talco B plate, just like this one. So it's that the two Talco B plates and the commutator in the middle create an isolated circuit that does not go to ground, because we are forcing the resonant signature of those to express itself through the ether, or as people will think, it's through the air. So now, in order to establish the timing of the pulse phase matching commutator, you have to, at least at first, you have to get a scope on the output. Now, you're not going to be measuring electrical activity, but you will get the byproduct. You will get like an electrical byproduct of the signal coming off this. So you'll get your signal, and what you're looking for is, there's a 180 degree out of phase pulsing that's going to happen, or like what we would call the null point of the pulse. So like if you're monitoring the signal through a scope, you want the null point on your scope to match the timing of when the contact from the Talco B plate hits the contact on the commutator, okay? Now, I know this sounds kind of weird. I'm going to get into the theory of why this is so, but that is very critical. So what happens to your object when this unit is running? Your object will pulse phase in and out of our dimension, if you will. And so we are not copying the physical object. Okay, so you just got to get that out of your head. We are not copying the physical object. What we're copying is the energetic, other higher dimensional template of the object. Okay, you can't really copy the physical object. You're going to end up putting sensors all over the physical object, and you're going to try to copy, and it's not going to work. But what we can copy, and we can make an infinite number of copies of it, is the energetic template of that object. And that's super important. And a lot of reasons why that's important is because if you're copying an object, especially if you're copying something like food, you don't necessarily want all the environmental impacts that have happened in that physical object. What you do want is the unspoiled, pure, like higher template, energetic template of that object. So when the thing pulses on and off, like pulses in and out of our physical like reality, out of our eyesight, what we're doing is when it's off, so like when the object is invisible, if you want to call it that, when it's invisible, that's when the pulse phase matching commutator makes contact with its contact. So we're pulsing the energy when it's in the off cycle. That way it feeds to the next pyramid unit, which has its own separate ROMAG and transmuter. It's all fired up, but that Talco B plate inside this small pyramid of the other unit is receiving pulses of the off phase of the object in this small pyramid, if that makes sense. So, and that's super important. So here we go. Here's another quote. We create the field for manifestation. This is interesting because it has these all these metaphysical meanings are like intertwined throughout all this technology. So we create the field for manifestation with predominantly neutral energy encoded with the signatures of the object we are copying. Okay? And so here's like one way to look at like what's happening. In this particular unit, we're really focusing the energy down like in this like vortex of energy that focuses ultimately toward the center of the small pyramid. So that object in there is very intensely bombarded. And that's due to partly the magnets, the rotation, and everything else. Now in the second unit, where we are copying the object, what happens is you completely reverse those magnets. So the stronger one is on top, the weaker one's on the bottom. and they're rotating the same way they are, they're north to south, and that's fine because now they're going to be north to south going up, so it creates an energy vortex like kind of in the opposite direction. And the reason we're doing that is because the Talco B plate in the second unit, it's resonating with the signatures of the object. And we are essentially drawing those signatures, those energetic magnetic pulses, we are drawing those up and to begin the formulation of the second object. So this is almost like 3D printing from a subatomic level. Now here's the thing. As soon as we get some of those subatomic energetic signatures forming in the second pyramid, they are connected to the template in the first unit. They are so well connected to it, they want to keep forming until they complete that whole system that they are copying. So all we have to do is really start the process in the second unit, and they automatically draw. Everything is about attract in this model of the universe. And so the attraction is in that second unit, they're attracted heavily to the molecular signatures in the object in the first unit. And as soon as we give them that space, we create the space for them to manifest, they immediately start attracting each other. So in moments, they literally attract everything from the template, from the energetic template of the first pyramid. They attract all that energy into the second pyramid and form that object immediately. And then the second pyramid object will start pulsing in and out of reality. And then when we slow everything down and shut everything down, the physical object will be there manifesting, matching the energetic template that we've created. And so essentially that we've copied. And so it's very critical that be done. All the grounding can be the same on the second unit. That's fine. Now, to run the commutator, the pulse phase matching commutator, you have to have some sort of, if you don't have, like some of these labs, they won't necessarily have a variable speed magnetic motor. They might, they probably have something much better than that at this point. But if you don't have that, so you can use a variable speed DC motor, but you want to gear it up like a 1-to-1 ratio to the commutator, and again, don't have it sitting above the commutator like running a shaft. You have to have it geared up and off to the side so that the electrical signals from that DC motor are not influencing what's happening in the commutator with the wires coming in and out of it. That's really important because we cannot allow electricity to contaminate this process. Otherwise, there's all kinds of problems that will happen with it. So not only will it be set off to the side, but it will be encaged like a Faraday cage around the DC variable speed DC motor, and that Faraday cage will go to a separate ground. It's not connected to either one of the grounds from the units. It'll go to its own ground and keep those electrical fields contained as much as possible so they don't influence what's happening in the commutator. Okay, so there are some limitations with this unit, and some of those limitations are it will not copy any man-made materials or elements, if you want to call them that. So like something like plastic, for example, does not copy well through this unit. So like if you were to try to replicate a cell phone or a laptop, there's way too many human-made elements inside of those devices that will not copy well in this because they don't have a naturally occurring template. Radioactive materials are the same way. If they've been modified, if they've been reduced or they've been concentrated from what happens in nature, then they will not copy well because the template is not there. And the same thing with like food. So if you try to copy like genetically modified food or non-organic food or food that has pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, all that stuff, none of those chemicals will copy. The genetic modifications in the food will not copy, but only because they're not higher dimensionally linked. So only the higher dimensional templates will copy. And that's, in a way, that's kind of good because it kind of forces humanity to get back to like what's real, what's real in this universe and what actually exists at other dimensional levels and has true etheric magnetic energy flowing through it, which is really powerful. And the unit is scalable. So as long as you like have the harmonic pulse rates of like what's happening in the wiring. See, these wires are almost like guitar strings. The way they're strung, they sing vibration notes. They have a musical element to them, a sound quality to them, and all of that vibration and that resonance contributes to the whole process. So like as you scale the unit up, you want to make sure that you are on the same like first order, second order, third order of these, and you're hitting harmonics, so magnetic pulse rate harmonics of this particular unit, so that everything is basically in the same rate, and then it allows the object inside the small pyramid to phase in and out of our existence, so that it allows us to get to the energetic template above or behind the unit, however you want to say that, behind the object. So given that, and this is like replication 101 and it's probably about the most that I should say to not say too much for safety reasons, but thank you for watching. Please send in any questions that you have about this topic, and I'll do my best to try to answer them, and then might, if I'm meant to do so, I'll do another video on this in the future and do more information on it. But at this point, I think this is the type of device that could be really essential in the near future. And so I think it's important that we talk about it and we get this going and get this conversation started out there, because being able to replicate things naturally is really powerful. I gotta add one more thing, because there's a little bit of theory behind this that's really interesting. So everything is changing all the time, so that we have this random sequence and random patterns that occur within a given system of elements or energetic structures. So what I'm saying on this, this is like loaves and fishes stuff here. So when you replicate from the template, you enter into a randomness of this process. So this is not a cloning. Okay, this unit does not clone anything. It replicates the system of like what you are, the energetic template of that. So for example, on that, if you were to replicate a fish, you will see a continued genetic variation in the fish that you have replicated. So you will stay within the species, you will stay. So if it's like salmon, you're going to have more salmon, but they won't be genetically identical to this, because as we pull from the template, we still are incurring this randomness in the process. I don't even know if that makes sense, but I'm trying to explain these concepts and I don't know if I'm so great at it. So with that in mind, I will see you next time. And like I said, please send in questions if you have them, because I know this is kind of a big deal. It's kind of a big topic, and the implications behind this technology are so massive. When you come from the level of consciousness that we're at right now, I mean, there are huge implications to being able to replicate things. Now, if we go through the pole shift and we go through an enlightenment is birth, we're in that world, then it's not such a big deal, because we're, the fall of economies, and then being able, this is the end of scarcity. I mean, this is the end of scarcity as we know it. This levels the playing field, because I mean, you can essentially replicate anything, like any element, whatever you just use your imagination. So yeah, it's quite a big deal, this type of technology. So with that, magnetism unlocks the molecular lock. Neutral magnetic pulsing unlocks the molecular lock and allows for replication or reformulation of energetic structures to take place. So just remember that. It's critical. It's key. With that, I will see you next time.